go ahead and get started. All right, first February meeting, 2022. Big week as usual. Recent achievements. So we've hit the finish line on the crowdfunding round. So our Series A is non-standard by a couple different metrics, and one of them is that we have a large component which is crowdfunded through early supporters, early members, and the community we're building. And this has been a really amazing success. We're tying the final bow on this whole thing tomorrow. And there have been many great learnings along the way. It's definitely, I want to shout Zach out. He's done a tremendous job running this. We've learned a lot, and it's given us a really amazing opportunity to reach out to our earliest believers and give them an opportunity to kind of share in our journey going forward. So great success. We hit our desired goal more than once, including the test the waters approach that we took. And this was just a huge success and a great lesson for us. Besides that, we hit our first $1 million month, and we've hit $10 million in lifetime revenue. I want to quickly touch on growth mode and what that conversation has been like historically and how we need to kind of evolve it. Tom raised this, which I really appreciate. We've been saying we're not in growth mode for a long time, and then we're simultaneously shouting out with big explosions these numbers as they get bigger and bigger. And so that feels like a weird juxtaposition. The reality is that we are experimenting, and growth is an experiment. We're learning about our channels. We're trying new things like activations with David Sinclair and Huberman to come, and et cetera, et cetera. And some of these are huge hits. Dr. Hyman's podcast, Sinclair's thus far. So these experiments are driving our numbers up. It doesn't mean that we're in growth mode in the sense that we're optimizing for growth, which is a very different thing than growing due to experimentation. So I just want to kind of clarify that messaging. I don't know if it's been super confusing, but I'm sure this is a distribution of things. It's not a binary switch that you're suddenly in growth mode. We're building towards that. Let's see, moving forward. We have had an unbelievable response to many of our positions with 102 applicants to chief of staff. So we're just getting just amazing responses, generally speaking, and appreciate everybody who's been circulating those. And then we had our offer accepted by Paul Barsh. I want to get his last name right. It's a tricky one, for digital marketing manager. So he's going to be coming aboard in the next few weeks. Final details to kind of come out in the next few days, but coming aboard to take on many of our channels across funnel optimization, SEO, email, so on and so forth, all of the areas that we're playing in, as I touched on in these experiments and driving towards growth. So that's quite exciting. A big one here, our universal IRB research study has been fully approved. Last week, we talked about this a little bit in terms of an approval with a few contingencies. And so we had another round and received that approval as of yesterday. So this is a huge step forward for Levels and for metabolic science. We're activating our data set to be able to really understand and publish analysis on the data we're collecting. This is can't understate this, can't overstate this. This is a big moment, and I appreciate everybody that worked on it. Multiple of our advisors are meeting today. The intention is to discuss the use and value of continuous biometrics. So I want to shout them out in advance. Sarah Gottfried, Ben Bickman, Dom, Rob, Dr. Perlmutter, all going to have this discussion, and very excited for what will come of it. This is going to be kind of a long path forward, in terms of articulating the value, both in the scientific sense and in an individual behavioral change sense of the data that we're collecting and the types of devices that may collect more in the future. Casey and Mark Hyman's podcast, this was at number 2 for 2 consecutive days on the Apple Health charts, which is awesome. Clips of it on YouTube are blasting up to 70,000 plus views very rapidly on Mark's YouTube account. So really awesome. Continuing to see just an amazing resonance with Dr. Hyman's community. And then a great week on the numbers front with 1,081 weekly orders, which is a new record, 89 blood panels. So we are getting the metabolic panel out there, and we're going to have a lot of great feedback coming soon, I'm certain. Happiness is still at 97%. Daily, weekly active users are continuing to rise, which is all great. Visuals here. Maz's podcast on the disruptors was released. We've got Lenny and David Perel on a whole new level coming up. We had a nice Business Wire release about several of our recent team additions like Taylor and Lauren that went out and circulated. The WeFunder responses from the crowdfund have been just phenomenal. We got hundreds of them, maybe thousands. I don't know. I've been reading through them for weeks, and there's just a lot of buried treasure in there about people just sharing their testimonials who we may not have in our, in our Facebook group, for example, or sending us emails all the time, but they're reaching out to us when they're submitting this investment and just saying, this changed my life or changed a friend's life. And it's pretty amazing. So we'll do more with that for sure. And then let's see, Ms. and Ben had a great productivity series conversation, which I highly recommend everybody go and listen to, about giving and receiving feedback. And it's been, we hosted it and it's being reshared, and a lot of people are really finding value in this. So continuing to see some nice return on the investment in the productivity series. And Dr. Terry Walls, so she shared her first piece of content related to levels, which is awesome. She's going to be coming aboard as an advisor. And being Bridget, so Bridget Tiemeyer, she shared a great blog post about the effects of CGM and how to use it. I think that's kind of the high level here. Jump ahead. All right, I want to welcome Vibor. There he is. He's on the call with us today. Vibor is a senior product lead at Shopify, as well as an angel investor and advisor, and an early levels member and supporter. And I'm always very excited to have a member come and join us on the Friday Forum. Vibor, I'd love to just hand the mic over to you and hear some thoughts from you on your experience at Levels, and maybe what you're excited for us to improve, and the bumps along the way and the great things.
Yeah, thank you for having me over here. So I'll start with, I actually waited a long time to get into the beta. I think a friend of mine who was connected to you, Josh, introduced me. So it was a 6 or 7 month wait for me personally to say, hey, I can finally try this. And for me, the reason I wanted to try it was there's a lot of things out there that are available in the market that give you a number. So if you're really smart and you understand the science and everything, that number might be great for you. I'm not that smart about healthcare, so I need more than just a number. What does it mean for me? What behavior should I change? And also, so there's the data, then there is the behavioral aspect of that, and then there's the motivation aspect of that. And I thought that my Levels trial, and I actually have it on today, or right now, my Levels trial helped me change behavior in certain ways. Okay, if I ate something, I have really bad eating habits, but then I can exercise after that. So that compensates for that. So that behavior change actually never really happened outside of Levels for me. So that was great. And so that was my personal experience. And the two things I'll add to that is I have a friend who's in healthcare, in pharma, and he is diabetic. So we were having dinner and I told him about it. I was actually using it a few months ago. And he's like, really? I don't believe it. I'm like, you want to try it? I can refer you. So he tried it. And he sent me a message about a few weeks later that he's in love with it. And now I think he is using it permanently because it helps with his diabetes as well. And my wife is in healthcare, so she's generally skeptical about, I keep trying a lot of things, and she's generally very skeptical about things I try because most of them don't work. But she's been amazed by the behavior change that it has induced in me, which she couldn't induce being in healthcare herself. So those are, I guess, 3 stories that I would share that have personally been very relevant for me.
Amazing. Yeah, again, we love to hear the real on the ground stories, and this is truly, as Karan said, gold. Thank you for sharing these. And honestly, the behavior change elements, that is what's interesting, is that it's self-derived. This is a tool, it surfaces awareness, but people have to make their own choices and can make their own choices. I'd love to hear some of what you maybe are excited for us to improve in the product that it doesn't do today. Any 1 or 2 takeaways that you'd love for us to focus on?
Yeah, I think a couple of things from an improvement perspective is one, the app itself in the, when I see the chart of, it'll see a spike, and I don't know if it's scientifically possible, but like the differentiation between this spike is from an exercise and this spike is from food. I can do it. Like I can manually say, okay, I exercised here, or I actually ate something sweet here, for example. But if there was some smartness around, this is actually maybe a good spike because this is because of the exercise, and this is a bad spike because this was made because of poor choices. And if it was done for me without me having to actually do anything, I think that would be one thing. To the extent I have to do less things, I guess, it becomes more useful. And the second thing, and maybe this is where you're headed over the longer term, is this is specific to one thing, right? But I imagine that metabolic health is made of many different components, and this is one of n components. So I hope that levels then goes from, okay, this is one aspect, but we're actually going to inform and change behavior around health on X or X different aspects. I think something holistic over time would be amazing. So I can say, okay, this is the one place I go for all of my health related behavior changes, I guess.
Absolutely. Really love to hear those two elements as front and center in your mind. The focus at the company right now is we show you how food affects your health. And so that's the core focus of several of the major features behind the scenes, is to help answer that question specifically that you raised about, what is the source of this? There is nuance about whether strenuous exercise could be driving spikes, which are physiologically very different than a very sugary meal, for example. So that's a core focus. I really love to hear that in your feedback. And then, of course, optimizing a glucose curve doesn't necessarily mean that you are, perfectly healthy, right? So we need to have a broader picture. And that's part of what was behind our metabolic health panel that we recently launched, the blood panel in home, is to help get some more, even though these are more discrete measurements rather than continuous, they give a better perspective on the spectrum of health numbers. And of course, looking to the future, I expect we're going to have a lot of continuous biometrics to work with, deconvoluted in the level software, ideally, but looking forward to it myself. Vibhor, thank you so much for coming on the meeting with us. It really couldn't be more valuable to us. If you'd like to stick around for the rest of the meeting, please do. We would love to have you stay, but understand you're probably a busy person and need to jump to something else.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me over. It was great. I will go to the next meeting, but thanks again and good luck. All
right. Well, thank you very much. All right, jumping ahead to welcome Maxine. Maxine has a background in software engineering, but also in developing snacks at Paradox. She worked at Apple Health, computer science from Northwestern, excited about all the things we're excited about. We've had Maxine on our soon to start list for some time now, and really excited to have her here in the forum today with us. And we'd love to hand over the mic and hear some words from you, Maxine.
Yeah, sure. I'm so excited to finally be here. I know it's been some time in the making. And I've been tuning into Friday forums for the last maybe 4 months now. So I'm so glad to finally be a part of it. Yeah, thanks for having me. This first week has been so fun and a little overwhelming, but in the best way. And it's been really exciting to meet all of you all. I'm looking forward to syncing up with the rest of you really soon. And maybe just kind of why I'm so excited to be at Levels. Since graduating college, I've gotten really deep into my interests in health and wellness and healthcare and health tech. And I feel like Levels sits at the intersection of all those interests. And on a more personal note, I can say that learning about blood glucose stabilization totally changed the way that I eat, that I feel. I've been vegetarian for more than 5 years now. And I used to only focus on getting fruits and vegetables. And I never felt full. Then I advanced my nutritional knowledge. So I was adding protein, but still didn't feel perfect. And with the help of Levels, and then also a bunch of Levels related content, shout out to Metabolical. I know Dr. Lustig's on this call right now, which makes me feel quite starstruck. I now focus on, the fats and the fibers and all of that along with the fruits and veggies. And I feel so much better every day. And it directly shows in what my score is like on a day-to-day basis on Levels. So all that to say, so excited to be here. So excited to help build something that can allow other people to have this kind of unlock that I've had. Yeah, and I can't wait to work with you all.
Love it all. Yeah, sounds like, a theme with the people coming and joining this mission. And just always love to have a fellow traveler, who cares about these things in their personal life come aboard to help us make it a reality. So excited to work together, Maxine. Everybody, please make yourselves available to Maxine as she gets ramped up. And I think I may have missed one of the coffee chats this week, unfortunately, but is there one other one coming up?
Maybe I can always schedule another one, or I'll just.
Well, we can do more than one.
Sometime. Yeah.
All right. Well, excited for you to be onboarded and looking forward to working together. Thanks a lot, Maxine. All right. Quick culture and kudos aside. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I want to reiterate it. Ms. raised this in the Woo channel, but Zach has just been absolutely crushing it behind the scenes. I mean, there's so much that our business relies upon, which is kind of channeled through Zach. And he has not been a bottleneck by any means, which is absolutely incredible to say, because he's been just simply adding, I think, velocity across all of the different areas that he has to touch, which is, it's really hard to do. I mean, it's just amazing. He's been a real force for us. So thank you, Zach, for working as hard as you have been on all the things that we've thrown on your plate. And we're almost there on this crowdfund round, and hopefully you'll have some time to relax, especially as we get some reinforcements with our second council hire. So just want to reinforce that shout there. And then looks like my slide didn't update, but I had two things on.
I have a next slide on you.
Oh, okay, cool.
I gotcha.
Cool. So I'm just going to do a quick touch on culture of experimentation. So Ben and I chatted about this week. We did the lean startup in our book club this past 2 weeks. Would love for everyone to jump in and review some of this experimentation memo stuff that Ben put together. The goal here is to get everyone to feel that experimentation is not just about product features. It's not just eng and product features pushed to the app. It's across the entire company. And so I had a great conversation with Brittany this week, and she was talking about how she and Jesse have been iterating on some of the FAQ and some of the help documentation that we have on the member ops side. And that's an experiment. We're going to see how it goes, and if it improves the journey for finding that information. That's great. That's exactly what we want across the company. Everyone should feel empowered to be experimenting in your function. It's not just about product features. So trying to find ways to continue to reiterate this and reinforce it so that everyone feels empowered, again, to take some risks and learn some things. A great example of where this paid off is when Chris came in, we were like driving response times on the member ops side towards zero, just like getting closer and closer to 0 minute turnaround time, which was, we were actually celebrating this as a vanity metric. And Chris came in and he's like, what happens if we have like 1 million members? We obviously will not be able to maintain this. Maybe we should experiment with actually slowing that down and see what breaks. And so that experiment gave us a huge lesson that driving towards 0 minutes actually was no better than something like 4 hours. And so realizing that we could massively reduce our ops burden while still getting the same happiness scores and same turnaround times and quality of information and experience was huge. So that experiment, had we not done it, who knows where we would be in terms of operational overhead. So anyway, I just want to reinforce that as please find opportunity to experiment and learn from it and share it with everybody. I'm going to hand it over to Ms.
Cool. This gets a dedicated slide. So have heard some cries from some people about the Threads thread, kind of feeling overwhelmed by inboxes. And what I'll say at the beginning is that I think this affects different people at different points in time. And so we've all probably felt it at different stages. And so a few things. One, it's certainly real. I want to acknowledge the feeling and the emotion, and also address the fact that it's not something that we're just going to live with and deal with. This kind of stress and overhead at work is not what we're going for. And so if something's wrong, we're absolutely addressing it. With that, some stipulations before we get into some reminders. We are 40-something people and growing. A bunch of offers coming. Team is going to grow quite a bit. There is no way to read everything. And so the outcome is don't try. You're not expected to read everything, and there's no way to do it. So embrace the JOMO, the joy of missing out. You won't miss too much important things. We have the forums. We'll use other mechanisms to update when something is absolutely essential. And if it's on your project, trust that you'll get the updates, and we'll make sure that happens. And so those are some ground rules. There's no way to keep up with every single thread that is happening across 40 different people at the company and a bunch of different project teams and functional areas. So you have permission to not even try. That said, some things you can do to improve here. Update your forum notification preferences. We pushed this one out in the Threads meta channel a few times, but people keep joining and forums keep spinning up, and the default preference is all new threads. So as soon as you get added to a forum, you're defaulted to all new threads, which is not ideal. If you haven't yet done some gardening, I recommend going to your forums and changing your preferences to only when I'm mentioned for basically every forum, with very few exceptions, the exceptions being general and maybe your specific area or function. So you have permission to do that. And if you haven't done that actively, you absolutely should. The second thing is be selective about joining forums. we're default public internally. Everything's open. You can access and search and kind of use the search filters to find what you need. So that doesn't mean that you have to keep up with everything. If you want to set aside an hour every other day or every week just to do some company reading, you can go spelunking through all the forums, but do it as a pull mechanism, not a push to your inbox. Maintain your inbox, keep it clear. The next thing, turn off email and push notifications completely off. Don't get them whatsoever. If you commit to checking on a regular schedule once or twice, or maybe let's be realistic, 2 or 3 times a day, you can rely on the inbox at threads.com being the way to do that. But really don't be pulling this up on your phone. It's not mobile optimized. It's not intended to be shooting from the hip or working that way. So don't even try. I know this is a weird one for some folks who want to see change history, but just rely on the inbox and process in batch. And then the last one here, use mentions and request response intentionally, both as a receiver and as a sender. There's, using that the right way makes it clear to other folks when they are triaging what actions are required and what else is just reading. And that's a really big help. So, be a good steward for everyone else and kind of play into the ecosystem so that it works. And then finally, like I said at the top, not accepting the status quo, continuing to iterate a few different things in mind on how we can improve meaningfully. And so this is going to be an evergreen project, but know that there are irons in the fire on this. So stay tuned.
Super helpful, Ms. Thank you for taking that one. And, of course, there's been some great feedback in Threads this week about Threads. Please keep that coming. If you don't hold it in, don't suppress it. We've got to share these things. Again, we're async and remote, which gives you plenty of time to write your thoughts down and then just blast them to somebody and have them review. And it will be better as we kind of learn the lessons that are there to be learned and iterate. So thanks, Ms. And thanks everybody for working with us through this. Okay. The main thing, Levels helps you see how food affects your health. It should feel like everyone is working towards this priority. I want to raise this as one of the outcomes from reading the Lean Startup and Sam's recent pre-mortem that he wrote. We want to make sure that this is very clear. This is the goal. If you feel you're working on something that doesn't contribute here, it's worth raising your hand and asking, like, am I aligned on priorities with the overall company? I'll let Scott take it from here, but I just wanted to cover that one real quick.
Yeah. All right. Morning, everybody. I'm going to keep repeating these short links until you all hate me. So if you are wondering about the roadmap, strategy, or vision, you can go to levels.link/ and then whatever you want to learn about. For the new people that are coming, starting soon, each of those short links will go to a Notion page that has the full 40-minute Alan-ish Loom session. Highly recommend that you watch that. We also had a fireside last week, so if you missed the recording, it's a good chance to catch up on what's going on in product land. Next slide. Josh, can you refresh just to make, if you haven't in the last couple minutes? Thank you. All right. As stated, 2 pillars. First, we need to show people how food affects their health. This is getting the vast majority of our time and attention right now. As we start to do better on this, we will transition over to the second one, which is to give people a home to become healthier and others, focusing more on the accountability and the belonging side of what we're doing. Next slide. Same thing as last week. So you can go one more slide ahead. You're going to see all the faces showing up under priority 2, which is what we want them to be under. There we go. So a lot of the this we can call a success case, mostly because we're in the process of getting some of the product and definition work around P1 done. Again, we are trying to maximally staff down the priority list, and then we're doing membership caretaking as it makes sense for us, up to 15% of our time. Next slide. We are about to shuffle the deck a little bit. So coming down the pipe this week is Maz's memo on membership offering and what that means for us. Quick reminder that the membership transition for our business model and also the way that we enable it inside of product and all of the materials around onboarding and whatever does fall under us doing business enablement. So as we talked about in the priority allocation, we're going to have to shift people around. We do not know what this looks like quite yet. Next slide. In the future, you're going to start to see some faces move around. This is intended. We're going to do this as smoothly as we possibly can, but you should expect that when we are ready and able to work on our first priority stuff around business enablement, that we will be pulling people off as reasonably makes sense, even if it hurts a tiny bit from priority 2 to move them into priority 1. So no action right now. I just wanted to let you know that this is coming. This is intended. This is good for us. And I think that's it for me today. I'm on Think Week this week, so I'm actually going to bounce out and do some more writing. But if you have any questions, let me know on Threads. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott.
All right. On blood work, as Josh mentioned at the top of the meeting, we had a great first week and actually a pretty good second week too. We've done about 136 orders since the kind of formal launch Thursday night of last week. We're still seeing about 10 per day. Those that have come in from last week, the results have come into the app sooner than they did before. We got results in about 5 days and 11 hours. Obviously, as more come in, that'll start to drift upwards. What else on that? We're looking into mail-in versions of the test. If you were here about 6 months ago, you may remember we tested both the version we do now and the mail-in kit. We're going to test that some more since there's about 10% or so of people that we can't get to with the current service. Let's go to the next slide, please. Farmers want to play too. That's right, Chris. You might have seen on Threads, I put a memo out today that I've been working on for a bit. You can get to it at levels.link/liftoff. It talks about launch in a bunch of ways and kind of reframes it a bit as an airplane that's going very fast that's about to take off into the skies. And I hope you'll give it a look. There'll be a bunch of work we need to do over the coming months on that. And I'm excited to get to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, JM. Love the analogy. John.
Yeah, thank you. On tagging, we launched phase 1 internally. Check out the tagging V2 thread on what to test, how to test, and how to submit tickets. So please provide feedback or report bugs if you have the chance. In the meantime, we will be fixing bugs and running phase 2, which includes the image recognition part. It is ready, but behind a feature flag until we figure out some contractual stuff with the provider. And the user-generated tags, which is the possibility to add custom tags in the node. Phase 2 is going to take 2 weeks plus testing and launch time. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Looking forward to trying this out. Okay, Marilla.
Right. So for Explore project, we just released a basic recommendations version of the Explore Home. So this will be a release that will hit about half of our active members, while the other half will stay on the current version. And the idea here is to test out whether our assumptions about if this solves the members' problems are true. So we have already post hoc dashboards dedicated to looking and getting those answers. That experiment will be running over the next couple of weeks, and for that reason, I put together a reference document where everyone can take a look and see our motivations, how all this works, and if any changes are needed, again, you can find out how to do them there.
Awesome. Thank you, Marilla.
Hey everyone, I'll be quick this week. Here are our engineering process SLAs and KPIs. This has turned out to be a really good way to track and keep ourselves accountable to reviewing things quickly. We had 2 pull requests that exceeded our SLA this week. Besides that, we're on top of it and the recruiting process stays healthy.
Love it. Succinct. Thank you, Andrew. That one didn't autoplay a second time. I don't know what that's all about. All right, open roles, no big changes this week. We are continuing to need referrals and need great people. Most of our growth is ahead of us. If you're watching this, please refer people that you feel will be a great fit for Levels. You can send them straight to levels.link/careers. And then our offers were extended for digital marketing as well as finance. I missed that one in the beginning. So we are, progress and continued growth. Awesome. And then Sissy is coming aboard on February 21st to take lead on community. And then Paul Barst is taking digital marketing manager. And I believe as well on the 21st. Awesome. All right. I believe this is Alan.
So big focus this week has been reduction. We come up with a couple wireframes, come up with some ideas, put it together, put in front of some people, get some feedback, and then eventually we sort of start simplifying it and consolidating some of the ideas. So that's been a big focus for me this week. Go to the next slide. So you might recall last time, we had this notion of sort of a program and stats. Part of this was to address, the dominance of the graph, the ability to digest as much information, the right amount of information and what's important in the moment. If the graph's there, people don't look at anything else for the most part. It's such a, dominant part of the experience. So anyway, we had this notion of program and stats. We had right now, we had all this stuff going on. What is important? What matters? Well, it turns out it can be confusing, and then you're almost left with the same problem here where you don't know exactly. And so we started consolidating some of that. We had this program and stats section. We brought it to one slot, to one view. Yeah, you can look at the next slide. And we simplified it quite a bit. So now we've got the graph in the background. This will be present regardless of whether you're logging data or not for our non-loggers. We heard some feedback as I was doing some user testing that people don't even know if it's working unless they can see the data. And so we want to make sure that people understand that Levels is, actually functioning and working correctly. It shouldn't feel dead. It shouldn't feel like an empty experience. Now, if you are logging data and you are generating these insights, we'll provide a lot of value, and we'll take over the top section. So next slide. So we've got a model, there's some visual design consolidation that needs to happen here, but regardless, we've got this big prominent section at the top. This is telling you what matters right now. We've got a bit more settled on design here with this sort of card format. And that will take over the top section when we have insights to show you. And you can tap in and you can read these nicely formatted articles that are sort of designed for mobile. Next section. And the big focus this week too was building blocks. So sort of enumerating all the pieces that people can make. Worked with Sam yesterday on some of this. And we've got a couple components that are coming clear into focus, and we're going to use this to create the experience. So next slide. So some of it is boring. Some of it is just all the use cases for this list, like what goes here? Where are all the states? This eats up a fair bit of time, but it's kind of important to do. So here we've got a little list and sort of absent all the design, surrounding design. Next slide. Tooltips, we need some more effective onboarding. So we need the ability to sort of point out important parts of the experience and tell them what these actually are. Some people are not even aware of what zone scores or logging food. So let's get them in there and give them stronger prompts to do so. Next slide. We got some media players, so we can listen to audio, we can watch video. This will be supporting more content integration into the experience. Got a playback speed control there for you crazy 3Xers. Next slide. More articles, we've been spending a fair bit of time formatting content, and I think we're getting to a really good place here. Thanks for the feedback from folks like Mike. I think we're going to have some really, compelling and easy to read content pretty soon. Next slide. And sort of user input. So we want to grant users more control over the experience and giving them the ability to sort of customize their target range. This is related to scoring and levels. Which will give users a little bit more control. I think there's some more discussion that needs to be had here, but in terms of a component, giving people the ability to provide some input to us, maybe it's on bedtime, or maybe it's selecting a target range, and having these little building blocks are going to allow us to personalize the experience a little bit more. I think that's it for design. What's the next slide? That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. Love it. Chris.
Thanks, Josh. Next slide. So, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, a month ago, Sam asked me to be the DRI for in-app reporting, getting a lot more information around, can we measure what people are using and features and doing A/B tests? So the first question he posed of, for example, how many people click on the question mark asking for help in the app? And I was like, great. We actually can finally now measure this, which is great. And we've added tracking and tagging to it. Thank you, Justin. And the answer is 7% today. Now, going a little bit farther, because my second hat goes to support of like, well, what questions do they have, and are we answering the questions? I came at it the other direction from the Help Scout of when people are clicking on content from within the app, Are they viewing an article? Are they asking us questions? What questions are they asking? Did they view an article before asking us a question? So at a high level, in kind of a day, 188 members clicked on the question mark. 70 people viewed an article within the in-app experience, and 45 of them asked us a question within that same in-app experience. So there is a little bit of overlap between viewing an FAQ and asking us, but roughly half the people that click on the question mark bounce out and go away. Now, what we don't know yet is, are these people that really have a legitimate question and are just kind of like, I don't know what to do? Or these people that are just like, well, what's behind door number 2? And let me just click on everything I can in the app just because I'm curious of like, oh, what's back here and what's back here? It's like going into a house and wanting to open up every door versus like actually having a need. So I need to find out more around, is this really a gap, or is this just people going, looky-loos of like, what's behind door number 2? Next slide. So of the people that did actually look for help by viewing an article, or I'd say reaching out to us and asking a question, within Help Scout, when they ask us a question within the app, we actually can see what they did before they asked the question. Did they view an article? Did they view 2? Did they view 3? Did they search on something? So I took 20 random members for this kind of experience and actually followed them backwards of what was their question, which is on the right, and did they do anything to self-service? Now, remember, they see the FAQs first before they can ask a question. So we're kind of trying to lead with self-service. And this is just an example of people that, don't even attempt to self-serve, or they try and then still come to us because it didn't solve their answer, or they're searching on things like lab results or blood tests or blood work. And we're like, oh, do we even have good results for that? So this is a bit manual to do, but at least kind of good to say, hey, is our flows working? Are people able to self-service, or are we letting them down? So this is just our kind of first initial attempt on this, but it was kind of good that we actually can start having this data actually kind of follow the user path through it to see kind of where they're coming from and what they're doing. Next slide. About almost 2 weeks ago, we released the latest version of kind of the app with a lot of these kind of cool features, which was on like the 21st. And as of this morning, the DAU, 60% of those users are now using the latest version of the app. The reason I bring this up is because as we're testing new features of like how many people clicked on this feature, are they using it? We kind of have to remember there's a little bit of this adoption curve of how long it takes for people to kind of really get up on the latest app. Some people might be on apps 1 version, 2 versions, 10 versions old. So sometimes when we're tracking data, it can get a little bit noisy because we're curious of like, hey, I just added that new feature. How many people are clicking on it within it? So I bring this up just because it can kind of muddy the waters just a little bit as we're trying to do A/B testing and is that new feature working? Next slide. Here's an example of looking at Murillo's Explore tab of, he added a ton of new tracking, which was awesome. Thank you for all that work. Things like, did someone open an article? Did they read it? What's a good completion rate? Same thing for videos. Did they see a video? Did they hit play? Did they finish it? So we actually now kind of have a bunch of stats around what are they doing? Are they consuming content? Do they consume more videos? Do they finish videos? And then within that, what are the most popular videos and kind of completion? So this is, giving us a lot more data to actually start, understanding what are people consuming? How are they consuming? And what channels are they engaging in filterings? So this is just, this enables a lot our ability to really understand what's going on within the app. So thank you, Murillo, for all this great tagging. Next slide. Voice of the Member this week is all about the metabolic health panel. Probably people that watched the weekly got this already. People asking of assuming that, hey, this isn't in Scarlet Health, isn't in my network, and I don't want to pay the full price, assuming they can just, claim it as an insurance claim. There was our Notion document. They didn't know to actually click on the carrots to expose the FAQs underneath it. They were trying to click on the categories, which don't take them anywhere. People having issues with Scarlet Health around their identity couldn't be verified and had to call, and that happened over a weekend, and they were unable to get a hold of Scarlet Health over the weekend. So they're getting busy signals, long wait times, and reached out to us for help. People asking for different types of tests, APOB or AST over ALT. Hopefully, I'm sure several people on this call knows what those things are because I don't. I'm just trying to repeat what people are asking for. So this is just all kind of the types of questions coming in around the metabolic health since it launched. And that is it for member experience.
Super awesome. And thank you for setting up the Voice of the Member channel and threads too. Recommend that to anyone who wants to continue to follow along these sorts of things.
No problem.
All right. Love to see the ApoB request too. That's great. Ben.
All right, we will say it. Growth is focused on value through membership. Lots of work going on. Everyone who is contributing to what that means with things like blood work as an ancillary stream and focusing on things like retention and long-term value. So next slide, please. Monthly recap. So we had our strongest month to date in the history of levels 1-1. Everyone knows that was primarily driven by Sinclair. So very excited to see how different levers like Huberman and all the levers that we're testing out will continue to contribute to monthly growth, especially as we get into what's liftoff. That's what we're going to call it, liftoff. Next slide, please. So the revenue breakdown, 681 was from CGM sales. This is made up of first-time CGMs and then subscription CGMs. Memberships was 352 and blood work 18K. So last month blood work was 3K only because it wasn't launched. It's exciting to see that this is still a very early ancillary stream for us, but to see that people they're using the stream and it's meaningful as it pertains to something like nutritionists. That is, it's not a significant amount of top line revenue yet, but you can see that this could be a growth channel for us. So as we start to compound this is where growth comes from and where providing value through membership comes from. Next slide, please. Year over year. So 581K last January, 1-1 this year. So 90% year over year growth as far as recognized revenue. And then membership, to reiterate this, I'll probably do this for the next 6 months straight. We are measuring subscription revenue from last year as it relates to membership revenue this year. So it's not a perfect benchmark, but if you look at the two, 121K to 352, that's 191 year over year growth. So interesting to see that. Next slide, please. All right, growth theme of the week. We had to slide this one in because I've been punting it for 4 weeks and it's just getting too fun to not talk about. So what the heck is this worst looking slide that's probably ever been on forum? It is 141 comments from a single video, the Ben Bickman and Casey podcast that is on YouTube. And what you see is those are actually pretty long form comments. They're very meaningful, they're thoughtful, and they're discussions within discussion. So people start having threads helping each other out, almost like a community in itself. Interesting to see. The top one, the top comment in the corner, it's a different one, which I had to throw in there because I saw it this morning and it's just incredible. This person said, fabulous video. Thank you both. By far, top 3 videos. This is Casey and Rob. I don't know if I said that, that I've watched for health. I've watched over 700 vids. Dr. Lustig, obviously not Rob yet. 2 things, please. 1, keep fighting. 2, live to 180. We need you. So this is the kind of stuff that comes in and people are sharing very, very personal stories. And it's just so cool to see. Next slide, please. So why does this even matter? Well, channels matter. So does this mean that we double down on YouTube or we go all in on one channel? And the answer is no. Here's why. So the Bickman podcast, 34K views on this video. And that's over, I guess, the past 2 months, something like that. 1.1K likes, 141 comments. That's incredible engagement as it relates to the podcast episode. So let's see what happened with the next one. Next slide, please. So 3K downloads. If you compare them, like 10% of the downloads, of course, it looks like it is subpar and it is not as strong a channel, but let's look at the next slide. This is why it matters. So on the left, you see the podcast engagement and the average listen rate. And you see on the right, you see the video. So 50 minutes and 47% retention, 16 minutes, 20% retention. Well, then you go, well, which one is actually better? And the answer is neither is better. The takeaway is that YouTube is the 3rd largest search engine in the world, and it's all about reach and impressions. So it is a channel where discovery happens, builds a lot of awareness, and we get things like this 141 comments and these very meaningful conversations happening for engagement. There's way more opportunity for discovery with content in perpetuity on YouTube versus through things like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, only because of the recommendation engine. What happened with Bickman, and I'll round up this rant quickly. What happened with the Bickman episode is in the first week, it only had 100 views. but it started getting a few comments. And as those comments ramped up, it got recommended to more and more people. And all of a sudden we got this growth flywheel where it was just getting served up to people over and over and over. And when content on YouTube, when the algo picks it up and it starts to get traction, it can just explode. And so that's what we've seen, is that it's getting high engagement over and over. The alternative is the idea of this podcast. What does that 50 minutes mean? Well, it is a channel for building super fans with true engagement, people who listen week over week, and they serve very different audiences, very different purposes. Both are important, and that's why channels matter. On to Tony with the podcast recap.
Thanks, Ben. That was awesome. So recap for January for a whole new level. We have 12 episodes that we released in January, and we have 18 scheduled for this month in February. Feel free to check out all the guests that we're going to have, team members, as well as other members in that bottom left there. All-time plays, we reached over 95,000. And for January alone, like a third of those all-time plays were in January, with over 26,000, almost 27,000 there. And as I mentioned each month on these recaps, I'm going to continue to reiterate that these are just metrics and it's not what we're optimizing for. So thank you.
That's wild. Thank you, Tony. Love seeing this. All right. Digital media. Who's taking this one?
Yeah, I'm going to take this one. So in the month of January alone, we have gotten about 500 direct messages, comments, mentions, what have you, across all 5 of our largest platforms here. So we've reached a point where we're not in growth mode, but using a growth tool like Sprout Social, which we've been experimenting with over this past month, could benefit us, not only from this vanity metrics standpoint. And again, this is only 2 weeks, or this is missing the first 2 weeks of January worth of data. So this will be more value for us going forward. But if you'll switch to the next slide. What this tool is super helpful for us to do is to continue to uphold the standard of that premium brand experience for everyone who comes in contact with the brand. So we're able to have a unified inbox and see everything that comes through and hopefully respond in a personable way. So this is a member now who originally just started out by responding to our Instagram stories with positive vibes and maybe a question every once in a while. Eventually mustered up the courage after a week or two to ask for if they could be allowed in the beta. So sending them a quick link, low lift thing that I can do with a text snippet. Now he's posting 5+ stories onto his Instagram every day. And I can see how active he's being with the app and really engage with him and ask him questions about the logging experience and get this qualitative feedback and really engage and activate members of our community. So it's something that is really exciting and really awesome to be able to do live. And a tool like Sprout Social is really helping us do that. And I posted a memo earlier this week. I'm going to drop it in the chat now. So if anybody's interested in learning more about this stuff, definitely click in and drop some comments in too.
Really awesome. That is, did not know about this initiative. This is great, Matt. Thank you. All right. Promo code performance.
All right, January promo code update. Nothing too new here. We set an all-time record for performance of a single partner code in a given month with Sinclair. I think everyone is aware of that by now, over 260K in revenue. Calling out a couple of other codes here. Model, which is from Casey's appearance on Sean Stevenson's podcast, which drove about 100 new members this month, which I promise is really great and exciting, even though that little bar pales in comparison to Sinclair. And then also highlighting Katie Type A new YouTuber who we've been working with, released a video in late December and drove about 30 new members in January. Definitely a model for replicating sort of smaller and activating smaller creators, which I'm excited about. Next slide. And then some weekly highlights. This isn't even nearly everything. So it was a very big week for partner content, highlighted by Casey's second appearance on Mark Hyman's podcast. As Josh mentioned, it was number 2 overall in health and fitness. So this is ahead of David Sinclair and Andrew Huberman and many others. So really just incredible exposure for Casey and Levels. Sam was on Noah Kagan's podcast released yesterday, and that's also quite a big business and entrepreneurship podcast. So really cool to see Sam on there. It was an interesting conversation. And then Maz was on his first podcast. So very exciting to get more team members involved. And Taylor and Lauren and Andrew are all recording podcasts where they're being released within the next couple of weeks. So exciting to see more team members involved. And then over there on the right side, we had this really amazing and thorough CGM guide released by Bridget Tigemeyer, who many of you know. She's one of our nutritionists and a partner of ours. And just really, really cool to see this type of organic, like grassroots programming emerge. In addition to this, Bridget is also working on education for practitioners. So for folks that she works for, other nutritionists. So really excited about where this is all heading. And then a few new YouTube videos. Josh mentioned, I believe, most of these, but Terry Walls, who's now a new affiliate partner, in addition to helping out, advising, and then a new metabolic panel video from Ali, which is just kind of amazing to see this come to life so quickly. And then we're continuing to bring on kind of smaller creators. This last one here was from a guy, Shervin Shares, and very high production value and awesome review. So recommend checking that out. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, I particularly love Bridget's CGM guide there. I think it's a matter of time until we see a levels-based recipe book or cookbook showing up on the scene somewhere. All right, Haney.
All right, 4 new articles across the platforms this week. A couple of our good servicey pieces. You might recognize these formats: the metabolic menu. We did Chipotle. This one we did Sports Bar Next in anticipation of the Super Bowl coming up. I think it's nice because it's a little counterintuitive. You don't think about going to the sports bar to eat healthy, but we find ourselves in these places sometimes. So like the Chipotle one, this is meant to give you a pretty specific list of things to look at. And then over on the right, the Costco, this is sort of our third and probably last for now in the grocery store series. We did Traders, we did Whole Foods, we did Costco. After that, we sort of ran out of national chains that we felt applied to everywhere. But if people have recommendations, go ahead and do it. But we've got some other ideas for how we're going to scale this grocery list rubric to keep it going. And then the Terry Walls Q&A from the podcast there. Want to call out the Everyone in Content piece we got up this week. This was a suggestion, I believe, from Casey a few months ago. Noted that it could seem like from the outside working in an async remote place would not be great for maybe people early in their career, for that you'd miss out on a lot of the kind of mentorship and professional development stuff that you might get from being in an office. And through some chat and threads, we came up with a whole bunch of reasons that's not the case. And Aaron, our great writer, took that conversation and some kind of various recorded looms and turned this into a piece. So again, fitting that kind of everyone on content mode where we're basically trying to create pieces that are really links we can send to people and to summarize something that we find ourselves talking about. And I think this is another one that falls really nicely into that camp. So go check that out on our Medium page if you haven't. Next slide. So update this week on other content initiatives. The blog redesign is something you've seen those words appear on this forum a number of times. I thought I would just quickly show kind of where we're at with that. So we have a firm called Captivate who is working on this for us. The wireframes, which started with a great other designer, kind of got them in place, and then Captivate took them and kind of did a design refresh with all the great work that Alan was doing on the new brand guidelines. So this is kind of where the wireframes are at, and now we're just going into development. The reasons we're doing this, there's a number of them, and there is a large memo out in the content wiki if you want to dive deeper, but really it's the primary metric for the content has been and will continue to be even post-launch engagement, right? The blog is about education. It's about teaching people about metabolic health. And so the way that we think about engagement on the blog is, are people reading the articles? Are they reading more than one article? Are they coming back to the articles? That's the best way we can really figure out quantitatively, if these are providing value, if people are getting engaged with this stuff. And so one of the things we're trying to do with this redesign is just structurally create more ways for people to see different articles, for us to better highlight some of the stuff we have out there. So some of the fundamentals that people need to learn, which is making the education easier, call out different sections like our personal stories or our ultimate guides, whatever those are. But then also just have other tools where when I'm reading this story, I can very easily say like, oh, here's a related story, or here's something else that you might like. Stuff all kind of exists on the site now, but it's just not sort of fully optimized. And this is what we're looking for. So one more slide. Next one, just to show you. This is just another view of what a page level looks like. So you'll see here, a little nicer audio player, directly integrating our Spotify. And that right rail there is just a much cleaner way to get in some related articles and just give people more sense of how much content is there. We're over 200 articles now, so we really want to make sure that people know what's out there. So more to come in this front, but just want to give a little sneak peek of that. That's it for content.
Phenomenal. It looks amazing. Thanks, Haney. All right, here we are. Individual contributions. I think we might have time to get through all these. Let's see. Justin. I think. Justin's not with us. Andrew.
Yeah, so personally, one thing that's really exciting for me is I'm making progress. I'm almost done with my mural back here. So for people that are on video calls with me for the past few weeks, I've been working on it, so that's exciting. Other than that, excited about a couple candidates that hopefully we'll sign soon.
Mural looks great. Tom.
Really not ready. I think I'm excited about the new team members joining the growth team, Sissy and Paul. And personally, I really enjoyed reading the Lean Startup. I'd read it a really long time ago, and I was just shocked at like how much of the startup lore that was baked into my head over the last 10 years all came from this single book. And I'm excited about what's going to come of it internally.
Same experience. Zach.
Just excited about kind of everything we have going on right now. Glad to be really wrapping up the crowdfunding. It's been exciting and also lots of work. So that's just really, really neat. Personally, excited to actually go on a bit of leave the week after next and get to be a full-time dad for a while. It'll be pretty cool.
Enjoy it. Ben.
Levels wise, stoked on all the strong candidates in the pipeline, new people that are joining. Welcome Maxine too. Super stoked on Jackie has taken on the investor update, which is a huge lift, and appreciate all that work. Matt doing all the engagement strategy. Stoked on that. Personal stuff, I'm going to cheat on this one a little bit. There's so much going on work-wise. Things are ramping up as always, but it's just one of those surreal things to watch it all sort of unfold. Like Casey on Hyman and Drew is just this like regular thing. Tom and Jackie will have these partnership updates that you're kind of like, is this going on? Sam on Noah's podcast, Ms. is coordinating all these candidates, JM doing launch planning. And it's just like, I reflect back, I'm like, man, I'm so grateful for this every day. And it's just like, it's a weird personal thing, but that's kind of like when personal and work cross over, that's the way it feels. So that's it.
Love it. Karin.
So on a levels level, I met with Trooper UK yesterday, actually. So thanks for the intro, Chris. And that was super exciting because it just makes everything feel very tangible and real all of a sudden. And I'm actually going to check out the UK warehouse from which we'll be able to fulfill UK orders and the rest of Europe in the future, actually, which is super exciting. And I've never been to a functional warehouse before, so that's going to be super cool. And from a personal perspective, I'm just glad I've got a weekend of not moving. So I'm planning on doing very little and maybe just unpack some more boxes and play with Amelia.
Awesome. Enjoy it. Super stoked to hear about the UK visit. Sunny.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for it. I'm settling in. So I will say on personal, I am excited to sit down with a stack of books and some help scout time this weekend. And if that's personal still. And then professionally, have a couple projects I'm finally taking on. They are small but mighty. So I'm excited to be contributing in that way.
Great. Alan.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see, it's always a good sign when you start enumerating and drawing red lines around design. So like some of the now stuff is starting to come closer into focus, and you can start feeling it pretty soon in the product. And personal side, it is raining here. So it's probably going to be like movie time here at home where I try to convince my kids to eat cauliflower pizza again. We'll see what happens.
Highly recommend King Richard. We watched that last night. It's great. Maxine.
Yeah, I think I'm going to steal Ben's combo of levels and personal update. I'm just really excited to be here and super excited to get started working.
Awesome. It is mutual. Ms.
The liftoff memo that JM landed this morning is very exciting. I think it's a pretty important one. I think one we've been looking forward to for a while. So I'm excited to read that more closely. There's a ton of stats and metrics and really interesting things from the past year and also forward looking. So pumped about that on the work side. And then otherwise have some family visiting next week that I'm looking forward to. And on a personal level, I've brought my phone screen time down to less than 20 minutes each day this week, which is a crazy feat, but I'm learning a lot. So that's fun.
Where are you getting your doom scrolling in?
Replacing it with, I don't know.
Love it. Stacy.
Matt's engagement memo and just his interactions online have both been really incredible. He has an amazing voice, and I just love seeing him interact with members and followers on all of our platforms. So very well done, Matt. Also, Karen, just so excited to hear that you are touring warehouses in the UK. That's really an exciting step. Personally, David and I are in Florida with his family for the week. So we're working, but enjoying some sun. Much needed sun.
Sounds awesome. Matt.
That's so nice. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you so much. It has been like a lot of fun to ship the engagement memo and just think, think high level and get out of maybe the mud of the Help Scout queue sometimes, and think how you can engage engage with the rest of the members across different touch points when things aren't breaking. Personally, I have also started a fitness challenge. I'm trying to take 250,000 steps during the month of February. Again, dropping links in the chat. Check it out if you are interested.
That is it's a noble cause. I looked at my historic averages and I think this one is out of my reach for right now, but I'm going to be following. Mercy.
Professionally, the WeFunder stuff was just really exciting. I read through some of the comments. I'm going to try to read through all the rest of them, but I mean, it's always amazing to see what people have to say. And then also the blog redesign looks beautiful. I'm excited for that. And then personally, I will be moving next week. So I'll be off a few days and I'm going to be joining the Austin crew. So I am excited for that.
That is exciting. Dave.
Well, I'm not going to be able to match that background noise. Really just professionally enjoying kind of connecting with the team members and doing management stuff. Really weird to say that, enjoying doing management stuff. Personally going to be smoking some mutton ribs, doing a Kiwi US kind of barbecue crossover. So that'll be the weekend.
That sounds phenomenal. I think we need a Threads dedicated barbecue chat now. Let's see. Do we have Jesse? I don't think we do. Let's see. This week I'm very excited about many things. I would argue that the IRB is taking most of my excitement right now. I'm really pleased to see that it felt like a shot in the dark. We weren't entirely sure if that was going to pan out. It's been a long time coming, but really, really cool to see that at the finish line. And then the team growth is awesome, and continuing to see the channels and the content we're putting out, kind of reinforcing a filtration effect where people who care about the way we're doing work are self-selecting. And an example of this is Paul, who just accepted the digital lifecycle role, but he kind of said, I found my people. And that's kind of why I applied, is that he felt he knew what's going on behind the doors. So that's amazing. Braden on the call? I don't think so. Lauren. I think we're jumping to Maz.
Hey guys, on the work front, I'm really excited about the work with
from the CDM manufacturers. It's been really great to work with JM. Big shout out to him. It's not only fun working with him, but he's so capable. So it's been really awesome. Also, working with Ben and JM on the launch planning and growth levers, kind of tying that to the membership memo and scoping task, which should come out today or early next week for the broader team. So really excited about that. On the personal front, my daughter had a birthday last week, which is super cool. We're going to celebrate with the family this week. And I also hope to get out on the trails with my bike. So it should be a great weekend.
Sounds great. Sean.
Yeah, very impressive that the pit of Levels YouTube comments are positive. Some places I've previously been at, that has not been the case. Don't recommend looking at those if you're interested. It's yeah, not good. And on the personal side, going to Hawaii next week to meet some family. So just taking it easy and gearing up for that.
Enjoy. Chris.
One, the team growth is always good to see on all the fronts. Just the energy, the excitement, the personalities. It's awesome. And irregardless of what Ms. said, I do try to keep up on all the threads, and it's overwhelming. But just the content in the Ben's growth memo, Maz's membership, JM's launch, and Sam's pre-mortem. Such good content in there. It's just so much fun to kind of get into the details. So it's hard to almost like to not want to keep up on it because they're just such great conversations. On the personal note, my wife and I, with the dogs, have decided we absolutely love cross-country skiing. We do it every weekend, so we're actually going to make the investment and go, to REI and get skis of our own because we're tired of renting whatever crap they sell. So excited to fully embrace winter.
Sweet. That sounds like fun. Haney.
Professionally, the IRB for sure. That seems huge. And then just a bunch of stuff in the content front. I mean, between hiring, we've got great candidates in the pipeline, the blog redesign really coming together. The edit calendar, if you ever happen to jump in the content wiki and look at it where we plan things out, is actually sort of filled out for a month or so in advance, which really reduces my stress level to know it's coming. So feels good that things are humming along in a nice place. Personally, it's supposed to be really lovely here this weekend, so hoping to get out on the kayaks.
Perfect. Gabriel.
Yeah, professionally, really excited for John's progress on the tagging project. Super cool. Personally, snow has stopped in Chicago and it's gonna be above freezing for like an hour this weekend. So looking forward to getting outside.
Take advantage. Steph.
Levels wise, I am excited about the IRB, definitely. And then the team growth, huge welcome to Maxine. I can't wait to start working together. And personally, we have one of my roommates, her friend is going out of town. And so we get to pet sit 2 adorable dogs for the next 2 weeks. And so I am so excited for that. And this weekend, I'm excited to kind of disconnect and get outside and do some hiking and skiing, since last weekend I was isolating from COVID. And so I'm glad to be free from that finally.
Glad you're feeling better. Brittany.
Thanks. Professionally, levels wise, so many things. But I loved hearing Casey on Hyman's podcast. I had listened to that podcast, her first visit there before I started working here. And that's what really launched my obsession with levels and, becoming more interested in metabolic health. And now just hearing it again, it just was kind of another pinch me moment of many, saying that I get to be a part of this. So that was super exciting. And then personally, just excited to enjoy the nice Santa Barbara weather this weekend. It's starting to warm up. I've spent way too much time indoors this week than I would like. So ready to get outside. Thanks.
All right. I think, Tony, you're capping us off this week.
Nice. Yeah, definitely +1 to the team growth. Very exciting. +1 to the YouTube comments. I see those notifications first thing, like every morning. And it's just so awesome seeing the flood of comments. And now seeing it all laid out in Ben's slide earlier was pretty awesome. Personal side, I'm excited to be going to Argentina for the next week or so, and looking forward to seeing some of my family there and surprising my aunt for her 80th birthday tomorrow. So should be a great week.
So cool. Yeah, enjoy that trip. That's awesome. All right. We're ahead of time here. This has not happened in a while. So great week, everybody. This was like, no shortage of content, that's for sure. We were just especially efficient. So from here, we've got the cafe after this. I think that's a separate Zoom link.
Same room, same Zoom.
Same Zoom. Okay. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Thanks everybody for crushing it as usual.